Hi everybody, how are you? It's Mike Andrew, once again providing a short video with practical insights as it applies to business and leadership. I'll do something a little bit differently today. I'm going to talk about assessments. Those of you that work for companies, you probably heard about assessments or you've taken part in assessments and so forth. Primarily assessments are used for either selection purposes or development purposes. And there's different types of assessments. There's assessments that look at what are those characteristics or traits that tend to enable success, and what are those characteristics or traits that may derail you from your leadership track if you're not careful, because you may assess in the danger zone. Or they assess around a company's defined leadership competencies, or they assess around executive intelligence or emotional intelligence. There's another type of assessment that looks at personality. And arguably, the number one personality assessment in the world is MyersBriggs or MBTI, Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. When I say arguably number one in the world, I've been reading over the years it's used by 80 to 90% of Fortune 500 companies. I know when I was doing consulting work with McKinsey, it was used throughout McKinsey, and everyone in McKinsey knew their employee number and their MBTI type. But it's also been consistently proven valid and reliable, and I think it's out in about 28, 29, 30 different languages. So very, very popular. So why personality assessments? Well, it increases your self-awareness. It helps you understand yourself better and helps others in your understand others in your organization, where their styles are, where their preferences. That's the big word, preferences. I'll get into that in a minute. And when you're running meetings, making sure that you're leveraging the preferences or the styles of everybody. So if those are extroverted, jumping in with all their opinions, great. But what about the quieter ones that are more reflective? Draw out of them as well, because that's necessary. And it may help understand what causes conflict or what causes frustrations in different personalities. Let me get into it. There's four major areas. One is extrovert, introvert. Half the world, they say, is introvert, half the world is extrovert. We know who they are. But what's interesting is extroverts are energized by being around people. They love going to the company functions, the get-togethers, the parties. Introverts don't. They get stressed out by that. Extroverts love the face-to-face. Introverts like the email and text messaging. Introverts tend to recharge their batteries at the end of the day by being quiet. So we need both. The next category, I'll just refer to it as N and S. Forget about what they stand for, because it's always been misleading to me, but N and S. N's are conceptual. They're comfortable with the conceptual, with the abstract, the idea generators. They come up with solutions, where the S's, like myself, we tend to be more common sense, practical, looking at the facts. I can remember one time I was in a meeting with two other colleagues, and we had to work on an issue. And those two colleagues immediately went up to the front, started drawing on the board, coming up with these ideas. After about 10 minutes, one of them looked at me and said, "Mike, what are you doing?" Because I was just listening. I said, "Don't worry about me. I have no idea where you're going right now, but I will. This is what you're good at. I will jump in when I'm ready with my practical views, once I understood conceptually what they were getting at." So you need both. And remember, it's about preferences. Just because I consider myself an S, it doesn't mean I can't be conceptual. So the third category is thinkers and feelers. Now in business, people generally don't want to admit that they are feelers, because they think in business we have to be tough, critical, analytical decision makers. But we need both, and we are both. Again, it's about preferences, because thinkers do feel and feelers do think, but it's about preferences. Thinkers are what you think. They're analytical, decisive, looking at the logic and the facts. And the feelers, by the way, it's not that it's all touchy-feely. What they do when they make a decision, they think about the effect or the impact this decision might have on the rest of the organization. And the final category, J and P, I'm not going to define what those words are, because again, I think it tends to not represent what they stand for correctly. But J's are structured, organized, They love the agenda before the meeting, and they'll follow that agenda before the meeting. And they tend to do to-do lists at the beginning of the day and cross off as they complete that to-do list, and maybe even add on more to the to-do list. So they're agenda-driven, structured, organized, on time. The Ps are just the opposite. They're not always on time, and that could be frustrating for the Js. Ps tend to be more open-ended, more flexible, where the J might think, we just finished this topic, let's move on to the next. The Ps might say, wait a minute, have we thought of this? And again, we need both. We need, in the end, when you factor in both styles and preferences, you can often come up with a better idea, a better solution. I like to joke that you know a J and a P when you go into their office. A J is, the office is clean, organized. A P's office is a mess with files and paperwork, and you wonder, how does he or she find what they're looking for? So anyway, that's the purpose of Myers-Briggs type indicator, MBTI, as it applies to working in an organization. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.